So Robert Kiyosaki had two dads. Well, not really. He has his own mom and dad, but he learned about the subject of money from his friend's dad, which he called Rich Dad. His own dad wasn't very good with money, so he called him Poor Dad. Kiyosaki realized at a young age that school wasn't going to be able to teach him how to be rich, and his own dad didn't have the knowledge he needed. So he decided to learn from his friend's dad, who wasn't rich yet, but was well on his way. The first lesson Rich Dad gave Kiyosaki was the harsh truth of the underpaid worker. Rich Dad asked him to work in one of his stores for very little pay. Eventually, Kiyosaki learned firsthand the harsh truth of the average worker, where people work very hard on a job but don't get paid what they deserve. Kiyosaki learned that on top of getting paid very little, they had to pay taxes, which take even more of their paycheck. More on that later. The second lesson Kiyosaki learned was that for the majority of people, two emotions are responsible for their financial downfall and the reason why they stay poor. One is fear, and the other is greed. The fear of not having money makes a person seek work. But once they start getting paid, greed is born, and this emotion takes over once they can imagine the things they can buy. This is what Rich Dad calls the rat race. We work to get paid, we get greedy, we spend our money, and then fear kicks in because we don't have any money, so we are back to work again. As Kiyosaki learned, being rich is not about how much money we make, because when people make more money, they also tend to spend more money, and they end up back in the same place. So no matter if their job pays them a lot of money, with this mentality, they are still in the rat race. But Rich Dad explains how the rich do it in a very simple way. Every rich person, just like everybody else, has an income and has expenses. But while the poor use the extra money they have to spend, the rich use it to invest. Rich people use the extra money to build and buy assets. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket without you having to be physically there doing the work. Of course, some of them, like self-sustaining businesses, will require work to build them until they become self-sufficient. Now, assets can be things like rental real estate, businesses you own but do not require your presence, books you've written, a good portfolio, or any royalties or interest that brings money to you no matter what you do. See, this is one of the main differences between people who are likely to become rich and those who aren't. Many people use their money to buy liabilities, which are things that take money away from you, like a car, a house, or a boat. While rich people, or people likely to become rich, focus on putting their money on assets that will create them a recurring cash flow completely independent of what they do, in which they do not have to sell their time in order to make money. This is one of the reasons why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. The majority of people sell their time to get a payday, and then they spend the extra money on some of the things they want, forcing them to go back and sell their time again to get another payday. And the cycle is born. To get out of the rat race, the rich use the extra cash and time they have to create more cash flow and increase their income. They keep doing the same until their assets create more income than their job itself, and they won't have to depend on a job any longer. They become financially independent. They can either continue working if they want to, or stop working on their job altogether because they do not depend on it anymore. Now, if they continue to use their extra income and time to build their assets, they will continue to grow their income. The beautiful thing about this is that, unlike a job, there's no limit on what a person can make. Many people talk on increasing their income and making more money. But something that Rich Dad emphasized to Kiyosaki was that making money is important, but just as important is how much of that money you keep. Taxes is one of the biggest expenses people have, where some pay up to 40% of their income. But there are legal tools that the rich use to avoid being heavily taxed. For example, by turning a business into a corporation, a business owner can pay himself a very small salary, which is taxed very aggressively, but instead, they can pay themselves in dividends, which is generally taxed around 15%. Mark Zuckerberg, for example, pays himself $1 a year in salary, which is one of the highest taxable types of income. But since he's a big stockholder, he pays less in taxes with what he receives from his holdings. And this was the basic breakdown of Rich Dad Poor Dad in 5 minutes or less. If you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell button to make sure you don't miss out on all the new videos coming up every week. As always, let me know if you have any questions, any topics you want covered, or if you just want to say hi. I always take a look at your comments. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.